recently now, bought a house in Pennsauken, New Jersey, South Jersey, for anyone who doesn't know the area, back in September of 2021. So she got those, we'll call them COVID rates, because it was pandemic time. We had crazy low rates. So snagged a house at the perfect time.
Yeah.
We love it. So thanks for being here, Janine.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Happy to have you. Happy to hear your story. So everyone, as you're joining the live here, we give it like a minute or so. I just ramble because people get that notification. They want to tune in, listen. So as you guys listen to Janine talk about her experience, you have questions for her, put them in the comments here, or Janine will tag you too. We'll make sure she's tagged, and you can DM her, or you can send me a DM if you have a question specific for Janine. So, yeah, we'll get started. Okay, I always like the fun question first. So, what is your favorite part of your house over in Pennsauken, New Jersey?
Oh, that's a good question. I think overall, just having space. We moved from an apartment in Fishtown where we lived for 2 years, and it's going to sound weird, but honestly, just like having stairs and being able to have separation, like a physical separation from one floor to another. We got super lucky with finding an apartment in Fishtown. I think we moved there back in 2019. It was a 2-bedroom apartment with a really great space, a lot of room, but ultimately, like, there's no physical separation. I live with my husband. And so sometimes you just, want to be on a different floor. So we have kind of like a basement, and then our main level, and then the bedrooms are upstairs. So honestly, the stairs.
Stairs. I love it. Like multiple floors. That's something you don't get with an apartment.
Yes.
And you kind of maybe like people take it for granted when they have it for so long. But yeah, having that separation.
Right.
So how did you go about finding and choosing your real estate agent that you worked with to buy your house?
Yeah, so we actually found our community. We did a new build home. And so we're lucky enough that our builder, the contractor that we worked with to kind of get the home, they actually pay the realtor fees for free for us on our behalf. So there was a point where we really debated whether or not we actually needed a realtor through the process, because at that point we had kind of already decided that we were going to make the move and move forward with home. So it was just kind of we have nothing to lose, literally, with getting a realtor. So honestly, I just went online, and I probably didn't do as much research as I could have, but we just kind of chose a random realtor and figured worst case scenario, we'd have someone there to advocate for us, because at the end of the day, neither of us had been through the process of home buying or building. So just honestly a random Google search.
Okay. And yeah, that's good. You can check their reviews. You can kind of like vet them online.
Yeah.
Okay. So you kind of started the process on your own before even getting a realtor to help you. Like, you found the house first.
Yeah. So we definitely were not planning to move and planning to buy a home. But kind of as you mentioned, like, the COVID rates were really just too good to pass up. I'll be completely transparent in that I just like looking at homes on Zillow, and I was just online. Actually, my previous position, we did a lot of work around studying homes and like the different factors that go into home prices. So like overall neighborhood, how many evictions are there, how many foreclosures are there, what's the median home price. So I was on Zillow actually a lot for work at the time. So I just kind of stumbled upon this new community, and I was being nosy. I wanted to go see the open house. And when we talked to the sales rep that was representing the buyer, combined with like the COVID rates, we realized that it was actually around the same price as what we were paying for our apartment. So we decided to just go ahead and move. It made sense at the time. So a very happy mistake.
Yes. Okay. Well, it's kind of like when opportunity arises, if you're ready and prepared,
Exactly.
then then you get lucky. But it's really
Right.
like you have to
Yeah.
be ready. It's not just
Yes.
pure luck.
Yeah, absolutely.
You were putting in the work.
That's fair. Yeah, you could say that.
So from Fishtown to Pensacola, New Jersey, that's like a big jump. What was your reasoning for wanting to go?
Yeah. So my husband's from South Jersey, so he's already pretty familiar with the area. I will be honest, I only ever came over to Jersey to go to the mall, which is conveniently right down the street from us. So I have been in the area, didn't know too much about it, but just wanted to go ahead and kind of see what the area was. It was a quick, like 15-minute drive from Fishtown, so it really didn't feel too far, minus the toll and like the bridge. And I'm not from this area originally, so I'm kind of a free agent in terms of wherever we end up. I've lived all over Philly. I've been in West Philly, South Philly, North Philly. So moving frequently and being able to just kind of adapt to different areas of living it wasn't really that big of a deal for me. So
okay, good,
yeah.
Nice. So all right, what was one of the more difficult parts of the home buying process?
So we did a first-time home buyer grant. We actually did 2 first-time home buyer grants. The first was for down payment, and the second was for closing costs. And it made such a difference for us to be able to basically have that free money to be able to apply to our home. And considering that we were first-time home buyers, all we did was like an online course. But the specifics, like getting all of that through when it came time for closing, it was really difficult to like work with the title company for some reason, and it ended up with us having a delayed closing because our original loan officer put the grant in as a gift. We were also engaged at the time, so we were getting money from our parents to plan the wedding, and they put that in as a gift for the house when it was not for the house. So there were just a lot of like really random snafus related to, what money was truly for the home and what, essentially just looking through our statements towards the time of closing. So we had to do a lot of letters of, what are they called when you write the letter to the bank?
Oh, letter of explanation.
Yeah, I think I had to write 8 letters of explanation, and it just felt like just this ongoing, never-ending, like explaining that I'm not like, doing something sneaky with money.
Well, that's right. The reason they're so obsessed with that is because they're trying to protect against money laundering.
Right. Yeah, and I wasn't, but having to prove that is like annoying. So I would definitely say just the overall like organization of money, especially because we did a new build and we signed the contract in January of 2021, and we got pre-approved in, I think it was March of 2021. And so from then until September, all of our like bank statements were essentially fair play. So it was, you want to go and buy a fridge, you want to go and buy a washer and dryer. And like I mentioned, we were planning a wedding. So it was very difficult to kind of keep everything organized and make sure that you're on top of what you need to do in order to prove that you're like able to pay for a home in the bank size.
Okay. That sounds like, wow, that sounds like a nightmare, honestly.
It was a lot.
Because that, in an ideal world, you're getting all of that paperwork, and not just paperwork, but like having the conversations with the clients, you're getting money for your parents for a wedding. Right. Okay. So we're discounting that. Can you put it in another bank account or something? Like, you're having all these conversations during the pre-approval process before you're going under contract to buy a home.
Right. Yeah. I know that our process wasn't typical because we technically were like pre-approved and then had to lock in a rate and then like come back 6-7 months later. And I know for me, building a home was great because right around the COVID time, like everyone was doing seller concessions, like, oh, you can have this home if you waive inspection. And I would have never felt comfortable with that. So I know that building was the right choice, but ultimately it was such a long process, which makes sense because you have to build the home.
It was like built from scratch. Like you bought
Yeah.
built from scratch. So you get to customize a lot of things.
Yeah. Yeah. That part is great. I definitely, in my mind, I would have thought that building a home would have been more expensive, but it actually ended up being the right choice for us. And it wasn't, when everything was said and done with the home buyer grant, and we actually also were able to get a tax abatement. So, living in South Jersey, super expensive. The property taxes are insane. And we got lucky enough that we don't have to deal with that because of the new build. So a lot of different things worked out in our favor, but yeah, it was definitely a little taxing to stay on top of for 9 months straight from the time that we signed to the time that we closed.
Wow. Yeah. Tell people what is a tax abatement?
Yeah. So in New Jersey, I don't know exactly what the tax rate is for property, but it's a lot. It would be like $1,100, $1,200 a month for us to pay in taxes to live in New Jersey. And so this particular tax abatement, I know it's different in Philly. I think in Philly it might just waive taxes. But our tax abatement, it essentially starts out very, very low taxes for the entire year. And then year over year, over the course of 30 years, it incrementally increases the amount of taxes. So, I think it's like $200 a year. Extra that we'll have to pay. So eventually we'll be paying much more in taxes, but for right now it's very nice.
So for the first year you got that abatement, instead of paying $1,200 a month, you're paying closer to what?
I think it was $1,200 for the entire year for the first year. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. So $100 a month. So you're going from paying $1,000 a month to $100 a month.
Yeah.
With a tax abatement. And that's because it's new construction.
Right.
If you have new construction or if you completely renovate a whole house, like
Mhm.
gut and rehab, you can get a tax abatement too. It's to incentivize people to move into certain areas.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So the city of Pennsauken wanted, new homeowners to move into the area. There are a ton of new build communities in the area, but this was the one that we found that had a tax abatement. So obviously that's,
Nice.
more incentive for us to want to come here.
Great. And then do you know just in general where you found the grants? Did you Google them yourself? Did you find them from your real estate agent or your mortgage professional?
Yeah. So my mom actually just mentioned oh, you're a first time home buyer. You probably should be eligible for a grant. So I just was looking through a bunch of different grants. There are state sponsored and county sponsored grants. Ultimately, the one that made the most sense for us was actually directly through our mortgage company. They offered a couple of grants that would give us the most money. So it was just an online first time home buyer course that I just did on a rainy Saturday. It took 4 or 5 hours. And then there are income and credit score requirements that you also have to pass. And then after that, they give you money. And so we did both grants. We qualified for both. So the down payment grant, it was $10,000 and then, or 6%, whichever one is less.
Okay.
And then the closing cost grant was $7,500. So we actually walked away from closing. I know a lot of people end up owing money at closing, but we actually walked away with a check for $10,000 because there was more money than we needed. So that was really great in buying furniture.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Where was, and both of these grants were through the mortgage company?
Yeah. Yep, exactly.
Who was the mortgage company?
Bank of America.
Yes. I was going to say, when you said 7,500, I'm like, that's Bank of America. So banks are there's independent mortgage companies and then there's banks.
Right. Yeah.
A mortgage lender just does mortgages. A bank is a bank, but they also offer mortgages and they're great for grant programs like that.
Yeah. Yeah. We definitely lucked out on that.
Now you had to, when you say income limits, you had to make less than a certain amount of money, correct?
Yeah. There's a maximum income limit. And so I did a lot of things that were maybe not what I was supposed to do during the home buying process. Like I mentioned, buying a fridge, buying a washer and dryer. But every step of the way, I made sure to communicate with my mortgage lender. Is this okay? And so one of the things I did was I switched jobs. I changed jobs. And I was told that as long as it was within the same field and I wasn't making less money, that it was fine. And so I also had to stay under a certain amount of money for our grant to still go through. So I actually, didn't negotiate anything. I just said, "Yep, we'll take that salary and we'll move on." And then immediately after closing, I think I started another job. So
That's
it
right.
ended up working out.
Whatever you want after closing.
Yeah, exactly. After closing, I was kind of a free agent again. But yeah, there's a certain amount of money that you can't make more. So actually, one of the other things we did was I'm the only one on the mortgage, and then my husband is on the title and deed as well. So we're both on that.
Right. Yeah. So because if you put your husband on, you guys would have made too much money to qualify for the grant to be eligible.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. But he's still a full owner, owner of the house.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah.
So, okay, very good. Now, the last question.
Yeah, sure.
People love to know about the grants. Everyone wants essentially free money, but
I know.
what I want to make sure people understand is it's not truly free. You had to require those income limits.
Right.
Are there any other stipulations that you had with either of your grant programs that you took?
So I mentioned that there's a credit score requirement. So you have to have at least a certain credit score. I don't actually know exactly what it was. I was just told that I was good to go. And then one of the other things that we were advised was just to make sure that we didn't have to repay the grant if we moved before the end of the mortgage term. Our mortgage term is 30 years. And so we confirmed with them that that was not a requirement for us to stay in the home for the full term of the mortgage. But that's definitely something that I would inquire about for anybody who is interested in doing a first-time homebuyer grant, is just make sure that there's no penalties for like paying it off early or moving out before the term. And so that's kind of what my advice would be for anyone looking for a grant.
Awesome. So yours with Bank of America, it's fully forgivable.
Yes. Yeah.
You never have to repay even a portion of it.
Right. Yeah.
At any time.
No repayments.
That's really good, because there's a lot of ones that are with the counties or the state sponsored that require you, but even just within 10 years, if you decide to move or sell it within 10 years or refinance, you got to repay it. You got to pay it back.
Yeah.
So, good stuff. Okay. So any fees that you didn't expect going through the process for the first time?
I knew that PMI was a thing, so we put down, I think, 3%, and then we also had the first-time homebuyer grant to like subsidize the rest. And then, PMI was definitely something that I knew about, but I mean, it's a small amount, and we could always get it taken off once we pay a certain amount of the home.
And what's PMI, in case people don't know?
I think it stands for some private mortgage. It's mortgage insurance. If you don't put down 20% of your home in the down payment, which like in this economy never was going to happen for us. So I think there's this idea that you have to put down 20% on a home, and like that's just not the case. So we put down 3%, and then we got the mortgage, the first time home buyer grant, and put that together. But then we still have, I think it's like $100 a month fee that we have to pay for like mortgage insurance because we did not put down that 20%. And so I think after you pay off a certain amount of your mortgage, you can actually just get that fee removed. So that's one thing that we're going to do. I'm trying to remember. I feel like I got so many different versions of that like final mortgage sheet that had everything on it that there were just so many fees. I think that's the biggest thing, is just, it's not any one particular fee that I was just kind of like, whoa, it was everything. There's so many fees that you have to pay. So just collective fees was all kind of a jump scare to see and to have to pay.
Are there any like topics that you remember of like, oh, I'm paying for this category, that category?
I just remember us not, and this goes back to it being a new build, we didn't have to pay for like the seller. We didn't have to pay like seller's fees, which was nice. Like I think normally you have to pay the realtor of the seller. Is that included sometimes?
Well, no, usually the seller pays the realtor.
Oh, okay, other way around. Well, that didn't happen. I'm trying to remember.
So the seller, well, there's no seller in that case. It's a new build.
Right. Yeah. Yeah,
So
exactly. So,
that's okay if you don't remember, but
yeah,
just
no,
closing
honestly,
off,
yeah.
it was overwhelming.
Yes, it is an overwhelming process
A
going
lot of
into, like, the title company is only open from, like, 9 to 5, so you have to go during the day, and you're just signing. I mean, I was just there, like, signing papers for an hour, and of course, you wanna read, like, what the heck am I signing on for? Um, but at that point, it's kind of just like, I'll do my best and hope it works out.
That's right, that's right. That's why it's important to have, like, people in your corner, like,
Yes.
good work with the professionals that you feel comfortable
Right.
with, that will
Yeah.
get on, like, a video call with you and, like, go
Mhm.
line by line.
Yeah.
And when you have questions, they can tell you what it means. At least
Right.
you understand
Yeah.
what you're signing for, because
Yeah.
it can be a lot.
Yes.
All right, so how did you you went through you kinda started looking at homes, you
Mhm.
started to go through the pre-approval process, you kind
Mhm.
of understood what you could afford,
Right.
what your budget was, like, what your monthly payment was gonna be.
Mhm.
How did you know it was time to make an offer?
I think just when we were thinking about kind of our future, we knew that we wanted to buy a home eventually. Um, I think I'm a big proponent of kind of saying yes to opportunities that scare you, and that was definitely like, "Oh, let's buy a house, that's terrifying." I think I was, like, 25, 24, 25 at the time. And I think just kind of seeing that monthly payment be slightly above what we pay for our apartment, and knowing that we wanted to stay in the area, it just seemed like a very good opportunity. Um, I think, at a certain point, I was kind of like, all right, well, let's go through the process. And if there are any roadblocks, then like maybe we could, really have a conversation about whether we need to walk away. But honestly, things went kind of smoothly through the pre-approval process. And like, so for a new build, you have to put down a deposit that's a certain percentage of the home. And it's like even getting the deposit was like a pretty smooth process. It was, I will say it was a fun process getting to like go through the customization for the home. And it really, there weren't any roadblocks that were like a glaring red flag. So kind of moving forward it just made sense at the time.
Nice. You
Yeah.
still, you still got appraisal and
Yeah.
inspection.
Yeah. So inspection was really big for us just because it is a new build. So we actually had 3 inspections. We had one inspection um, pre-drywall. So at that point, the house was just kind of like studs, bare studs, and wood. So we had an inspector come out and do an inspection then, and then we had an inspection prior to closing, and then we actually had a 1-year inspection um, after we closed. So
Ah,
the warranty for the builder, they'll come out and fix anything that comes up to a year after closing. So inspection was really big for us. We found a really good inspection company and just wanted to keep using them as much as possible.
very nice. How did
Yeah.
you go about finding that inspection company?
I have no idea. My husband did it. I think he actually works in construction, so he I think asked around for a couple of different recommendations, and we got lucky with a really great inspection company.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, cool. So that was gonna be my last question about the timeline, start to
Yeah.
finish. So and this is different for maybe a lot of people listening
Mhm.
that are looking at already built homes.
Right. Yeah.
Sometimes they, in the city, there's a lot of new construction in
Mhm.
Jersey. There's a lot of new in South Jersey, a lot of new construction. So what was your timeline, just like high level from start to finish, brand new construction?
So we went and looked at the open house in January. I think the next weekend
And was
we
that like a model home?
Yeah, yeah, sorry. So it was a model home. They actually have, so our community has 3 different types of homes. The model home was the smallest. So we did have the ability to drive to another community to see the house that we ended up buying. But we were just kind of like, it'll be okay. I think we did a 360 tour, like a virtual tour online. And so we actually decided to go with the middle of the 3 homes. They get incrementally larger. So we went with the middle size. And so that was in January of 2021 that we like signed the contract, gave the deposit and everything. They started build in April of 2021, and then we closed in September of 2021.
Nice. So about 9 months.
Yeah.
A pregnancy term.
Yeah, I know. We birthed the house.
You birthed the house. I
Yeah.
love it. Okay. So 9 months is not that bad all in all to
No.
go through all of that, have a brand new house that you customized,
Right.
you chose your special features and stuff.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Process.
Why is homeownership important to you?
I think it's important to me. I studied evictions for 3 years, and I've been privy to a lot of just like really unfortunate situations where rent was raised or maintenance was not taken care of, and I think homeownership just provides a level of security that you can't get with apartment living. And I understand that it takes a lot of organization. There are things out of your control like credit scores that takes like years to improve, but I would definitely say that just because of the instances that I witnessed, like watching people, be forced out of their homes, obviously, that can come with homeownership if you're not able to pay, but it's not such a harsh way of going about it. So I would say security definitely is part of it. But then I also think just like having that asset in your name, I think makes a difference. There's equity in the home. You have the ability to, take that money that you've invested into the home and get a return on it in a way that you wouldn't be able to renting. So there's a number of different factors.
Nice. Is there anything in particular that you feel you or your husband both did to sort of prepare for homeownership in the years prior?
Honestly, no. It was just kind of a on a whim situation. Like I said, like the opportunity, like I was just being nosy and wanted to see the model home, and like the opportunity presented itself between the rates and like overall payment structure. I will say I always was conscious of my credit. I never really purchased. The home was my first large purchase ever. And so I never really used my credit in a way other than like getting credit cards so I can go on vacation. But just really keeping my credit like not at the forefront. Like I wasn't obsessive over it, but just having an idea of like where my credit was, what it looked like, if there was anything I could do to improve it over time. And so that definitely helped in terms of not being like it wasn't a roadblock or a barrier in the way that it could have been if we just up and decided to buy a home and my credit wasn't kind of like where it needed to be.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So
what about saving and budgeting?
We do have a financial advisor, and so that helps a lot in terms of having money that we have just set aside. We, had a goal to buy a home. Obviously, it wasn't like then that we had the goal to buy the home, but we did have money that we had set aside for that plan to eventually come to fruition. And because we did have that money set aside, we were able to just kind of take it out of the accounts that we had. So I would definitely, I think that financial advising is really helpful. It's not anything that's like super expensive, and it's good to just be on top of like, here are my plans. How am I doing in terms of like saving towards that plan? He just like takes money on my account. I never even see it. And you look and there's a lot of money that's been saved up over time. So I definitely think that was helpful.
That's awesome. How did you get connected to a financial advisor, and when was that?
I would say that was probably it was probably during the beginning of COVID, like 2020. Okay. And he's actually a childhood friend of my husband's. I probably would have never gotten a financial advisor otherwise. So when I met him, he was already using him as a financial advisor. So he just kind of pulled me in to his account. And so it just kind of word of mouth. But I definitely recommend it.
Nice. Awesome. Okay. And what are your plans for the next 5 years with homeownership?
Yeah. I think, well, like we said earlier when we were talking, I am not letting go of this house. Like this rate is too good to let go of. We're not selling the house. So we'll definitely keep it. I do think eventually we'll, move and, outgrow the space as we start to have a family. But yeah, this house isn't going anywhere. So regardless of those plans, we're going to keep it.
Okay. So what do you think that'll look like for you to keep the house, but maybe when you outgrow it, what will you guys do?
Yeah, so my husband's like way more of an entrepreneur than I am. So I'm not sure if he would want to keep it as an investment property or like keep it within the family. He has a lot of siblings. Not sure what that would look like exactly. But I know that we have options. Like I know a couple of homes in the neighborhood are being rented out. So that's definitely an option. It's like an interesting layout for the community where there's actually apartments on the other side of the community. So there's a lot of opportunity for renting as well. So yeah, I think it'll be good. So,
That's good. That's important for people to know because
yeah,
that's important for people to know because a lot of times people think they're stuck when they buy a home, that they have to be there forever, or that it's going to be such a burden for them to ever move from that place. But it really is more flexible.
Yeah.
People think.
Yeah. I think when you think of like a 30-year mortgage, like that's a really long time. But once you pay it off, like if you're willing to stick with the home for that time, once you pay it off, like you're golden, and all you really have to do is pay taxes, which in New Jersey is like a lot, but anywhere else, like you're good to go.
Yeah.
So
but also you 100% don't, like a lot of people coming into the market in the next few years here, they're not going to have the interest rate of 3% or below.
Yeah.
So they, if they have a higher rate, there's need for them to refinance. Or so all that to say, you're not going to stay in the mortgage for 30 years. Like you might stay in the mortgage for 30 years, but even then somebody else might start paying that mortgage for you guys.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Put a tenant in there.
Right, exactly.
Start paying that mortgage. Like you're not stuck with it for 30 years.
Yeah, I definitely don't feel stuck. I think that's the best thing is like, even with buying a home, like I don't feel like, oh, we can never leave, or like, oh, we have this house that we have to keep. It feels more like an opportunity than like a burden for sure.
I love it. I love it. And yeah, even for people to refinance, they might be wanting to get cash out. Like you talked about, you have equity, you have an asset. You can, it's like a piggy bank for yourself. Your money is going into it every month and you can take it back out as liquid cash.
Right.
So there's lots of moving pieces, even though the term is 30 years for people. There's lots of things you do within the first 5-10 years.
Right. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Any last words for people here, encouragement or just general advice you want to share?
Yeah. Like I know in Philly, there's a lot of opportunity, and I know that it's great living in the city. I grew up in the suburbs. I grew up outside of DC in the Virginia suburbs, like Northern Virginia. So I'm more like predispositioned to want to live in the suburbs. So I get wanting to stay in the city. But I think there's a lot of opportunity moving outside of the city. We're still only 15 minutes away. It's a quick Uber ride into the city. Like going to Center City is sometimes faster leaving from here than leaving from Fishtown, for example. So just to keep your options open in terms of location. It's nice to have a parking spot, like a garage to come home to and not like drive around for 40 minutes in South Philly. So like be open to not being in the city, but still having access to like come in and do whatever you want to do in the city, go to restaurants, go out, whatever. So
awesome. Yeah. Keep your options open, be flexible, and yeah, whatever works for your budget at the end of the day.
Yes. Budget is huge. Like we could have, like I mentioned that we went with the middle size for the home. We could have probably gone for the biggest size, but ultimately it's what works for your budget. It's not necessarily what you can afford. It's what you feel comfortable with. So like having those conversations with your loan officer and having your conversation, if you have a financial advisor, having those conversations to not necessarily get like the most expensive. We were pre-approved for like way more than this house is worth. And we said, we're not paying that every month. Just because you can pay that every month doesn't mean that you have to pay that every month. So we're saving a lot of money because we made that decision, and we're able to do more things, and still have a home that we can own.
Exactly. We don't want to be house poor.
Yeah.
We don't want to kill ourselves by just having to only pay the mortgage every month and have
Right.
no extra things going on. So
Yeah.
yeah, look, the financial advisor is a great plan. At least just get a spreadsheet and look at your
Right.
budget. Look at what you bring in every month and what you're spending on. And
Right. Yeah. And it's not even just like the mortgage that you're paying. So like you're paying the principal and the interest, but like we pay HOA fees, we pay PMI fees, like home insurance fees. Like it's never just like that flat amount that you're paying. Add like a couple hundred, maybe $500 to like the mortgage payment and feel comfortable with that,
yes,
before like deciding anything.
that's right. Get the full breakdown. Like
Right.
know what goes into your monthly payment.
Mm-hmm.
It is property taxes and insurance.
Mm-hmm.
If you have an HOA fee and if you have mortgage insurance as well. So yeah, there's a lot of components
Yeah.
that go in there, but just make sure the overall number makes sense for you.
Mm-hmm.
And like you did something great by comparing it to your rent. So like, what am I paying in rent today?
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be essentially my new rent payment.
Right.
Does it make sense? Can I go a little bit higher
Mm-hmm.
to get the house I want? Or what's my maximum?
Right. And I know one of the things that like a lot of people are hesitant about in terms of home ownership is like the maintenance. But for us, like going like not to beat the new build idea to death, but like going new build really kind of alleviated a lot of those like worries for us, because we're not going to have to replace the HVAC. We're not going to have to replace appliances because we bought them. So there are other things that also go into like homeownership fees, is just like maintenance in general.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. These things can be expensive.
Yeah.
Over time. So
Right.
that's something to consider. It just all depends on people's level of okayness with
Right.
fixing things. So like maybe like someone like your husband might be like, oh, I'm okay with buying this older house because like I'm a handy guy. I know how to,
Right.
I could fix something if I need to. Other people are like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do any of that. So I need to buy like a newer house or a recently renovated house where I know I'm not going to have to do too much. And just tap into your network of people too,
Right.
friends, family, people that are going to help you out. Like it's not all on your shoulders just because you're the owner of the house.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, great stuff, Janine. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day and sharing your story and your experience with us.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
All right. Have a